Hello, Malverne.
Hello, Lou.
That's it.
Hello,
Malverne.
hello, Lou.
Okay, thank you. Well, it's so great to be back here again. This is one of the nicest parks we perform in. And we performed in Eisenhower Park and Heckscher Park in Huntington, all these big places. This is the only park where I could do a concert in the middle of the afternoon because of all of these beautiful trees. So thank you for coming. We hope you enjoy our performance. And before we go on, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce Ella and Mayor Tim Valentine.
Well, thank you, Maestro. We couldn't get her to smile for the Herald earlier because the band was warming up behind us, and she does love music, so I'm happy to have Ella with us here today. Also to my right, it's my distinguished pleasure to introduce to you Maria Cassini. The Chamber of Commerce is a proud sponsor of this event with the Village today, and they've worked really hard to get our storefronts refilled, to keep the character of our village intact. And we have a lot of exciting news for you coming up about a new restaurant coming into our village. We've got Scoop reopening. We've got a lot of new things, exciting things that come to this village. So I want to thank the Chamber for all their hard work and contributions to this village. The tall guy on the end, Trustee Carl Prizzi, thanks for coming out today. And Trustee Perry Cucci, we appreciate it. You know, one of the things I was thinking about on the way here, and I was listening to one of the news stations, is you know, a lot of crazy things in our national political environment, but to hear the Pops, you know, play our national anthem really lifts your spirits and soothes your soul. So I want to thank our this wonderful volunteer organization for sharing that and sharing this traditional experience with us here in Malverne. So thank you very much for all your hard work and dedication. And in particular, I just wanted to point out, if they wouldn't mind standing for us, 4 Malverne residents that are part of the Nassau Pops Orchestra. If you would please stand and be recognized, and that's Peter Freeman. Peter. Peter Roman. Denise DeMea. And Emery Cucci. Emery, thank you. So again, on behalf of the Incorporated Village of Malverne, the Chamber, our board, Maestro, I hand the microphone back to you. Thanks again for spending this wonderful afternoon with us here in Malverne. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you to the Village, and thank you to the Chamber of Commerce. And ladies and gentlemen, make sure you shop local and keep the stores here in Malverne in business for all you fine people. Well, the theme of our program this afternoon is America 2024. And you'll be hearing music that is uniquely our own, music that was composed here in the United States, and things that are just iconic for our particular country. We hope you enjoy. We'll be doing music from Broadway, from television, from film, and we'll have a few patriotic numbers at the end of the concert as well. We're starting our concert with a march that was written by E.E. Bagley in 1906, and it's entitled The National Emblem March. And you're all familiar with the national emblem. You've seen it on our currency. You've seen it certainly on the presidential seal. And it depicts an eagle with his wings unfurled. And in his right talon, he's holding an olive branch with 13 leaves and 13 olives, signifying peace. In his left talon, he's holding 13 arrows, showing that we're always ready for war. His face is turned towards the olive branch to show that he prefers peace to war, which we certainly all do. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoy our opening number, The National Emblem March by E.E. Bagley.
So what's your favorite for? A separation. No, you put it on top. Separation. How?
We'll figure this out. Not a big deal. Anyway, if I was to ask you, what is my family to me? What if you were to ask yourself, what is my occupation to me? I'm sure you'd have a lot to say. Now, what if you ask yourself, what is America to me? A little more difficult question. Let me take you back to the year 1945. The war is over, and for a quarter, you can go to the movies and see a Betty Boop cartoon, a 10-minute newsreel, and a double feature. In that year, 1945, a young singer, 29 years old, named Frank Sinatra, made one of those newsreels. It was called The House I Live In. And I think the words are very poignant. And I wanted to start our concert, America 2024, with this song. And listen closely to the words, because I'm sure each and every one of you will be able to relate to something that you hear in this song. It's a beautiful piece, and I've asked my friend Jack Casson to join us. And ladies and gentlemen, Jack Casson. Jack, please mic over here, please. So, working out some things with the wireless. Jack?
We got to speed this up. I'm on the 10:23 to. Oh, I got to stand over here. Okay. Oh, okay. Plenty of time. What is America to me? A name, a face, or a flag I see. A certain word, democracy. What is America to me? House I live in, a plot of earth, a street, the grocer and the butcher and the people that I meet, the children in the playground, the faces that I see, all races and religions, that's America to me. The place I work in, the worker at my side, the little town or city where my people lived and died, the howdy and the handshake, the air of feeling free, and the right to speak my mind out. That's America to me. The things I see about me, the big things and the small, the little corner newsstand and a house a mile tall, the wedding and the churchyard, the laughter and the tears, the dream that's been a growing for 250 years. The town I live in, the street, the house, the room, the pavement of the city, or a garden all in bloom. The church, the school, the clubhouse, the million lights I see, but especially the people. That's America to me.
Beautifully done. Jack will be back in just a few minutes with his lovely wife, Ann, and they'll be singing some more for you. Is this working now, Susan? And it certainly is. You can have your mic. Okay. Hello? Ah, there you go. Well, I told you we'll be doing music that was really born here in the United States. Back from going into the 18th into the 1900s, there was a piano player named Scott Joplin who developed a new unique style of piano playing called ragtime. And ragtime caught on, it was very lively, and eventually it evolved into what we now know as swing music. Now, obviously, this is not a swing band. There's no saxophones or any groups like that. But we have strings that swing. We hope you enjoy this next selection called the Jump Swing Fever. Willie on the trumpet. Will is a longtime friend of mine, personal friends, and the orchestra, we started back in 1984. This is our 41st season. Willie's been with us every year since. So, and there are a few others in the orchestra as well. So we thank Willie for that great solo. Thanks. All right, well, maybe something a little slower now, and from the world of film. And there was a movie made in 1939, great film, takes place down south, and it takes place during the Civil War. It starred Clark Gable and Vivian Lee. And the theme from this is called the theme from Tara. Tara, of course, was the name of the plantation that Vivian Lee's character lived in. And you'll recognize the theme right away. Who remembers the $1 Million Movie? Channel 9, remember? I must have seen King Kong 15 times on that channel.
Mighty Joe Young.
Mighty Joe Young, that was another one, and that was old Abbott and Costello movies. Anyway, the theme from Tara is used, or was used, for that show, $1 Million Movie. We hope you enjoy. Our next selection, written by Max Steiner, the theme from Tara. I love those woos. That always another film. I wanted to, well, let me say one other thing. Before I forget, I have to read my notes so I don't get it wrong. This piece we just played was written by Max Steiner. He was a tremendous composer of film music. He not only did the music to Gone with the Wind, but to Casablanca, Key Largo, The Jazz Singer, Pain Mutiny, and Intermezzo, just blockbuster films, and a very well-known composer. And today, we have someone just as popular, if not more so, who's written countless film scores. And I wanted to pick something that reminded me of my childhood as I was growing up. And what could be more American than And Who, disguised as Clark Kent, fights the never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way. Ladies and gentlemen, John Williams' exciting theme from Superman. Jack and Ann, are you still around? Where'd you go? Oh, they're coming? All right. We're going to change the order of things just for one number. Okay. We're going to go back from film now to stage. And the next two selections we have were actually stage plays, but really the films that came slightly afterwards, I think were even more popular than the stage play. The film was absolutely, yeah. And this particular selection that we're going to do, oh, say hello to Ann Casson, by the way.
She's very good, very good.
Yes. Jack and Ann have been with us for a long, long time, and we always love having them along. And this show was written and opened in 1972, and actually took place in Northwest Chicago. The film that was subsequently made a few years later took place in California, and it talks about 10 working class teens who are navigating the complexity of life and peer pressure and politics and all that happy stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, the film starred John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, selections from Grease.
When I was 3, I pushed a plow. While chopping wood, I moved my leg, and I started dancing when I gathered eggs. The cowboy clapped those only 5. If I dance some more, he's a born and jive. Born to hand job, baby. Born to hand job, baby. Yeah, yeah. Summer loving had me a blast.
Summer loving happened so fast.
Met a girl, she's crazy for me.
Never boy kiss can be.
Summer days drifting away to a summer night.
Tell me more, was it love at first sight?
She swam by me, she got a cramp.
He ran by me, got my suit down.
I saved her life, she nearly drowned.
He showed off, splashing around.
Summer sun, something be done for a summer night. So I told her we'd still be friends.
Then we made all through the night.
Wonder what she's doing now.
Summer dreams ripped at the seams, my heart wore the summer night.
me more, tell me more. Wake up, small barrel plug wind. But you can shut off and throw blade around the wind. With a 4 feet on the floor, they'll be waiting at the door. You know that ain't no bit, we'll be getting lots of it. There's a lightning. Go, 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 go. Lightning, you're burning up the corner. Please lightning, go, please lightning. Please lightning, you're pushing through the heat that's dry. Please lightning, go, please lightning, what's supreme? It's just a scream. You are the top, my heart will pop. You are a dream that's so supreme. But there's a lightning, lightning, lightning. Your future's so unclear now. What's left of your career now? Can't even get a trade in on your smart.
Beauty school dropout, no graduation day for you. Beauty school dropout, missed your midterms and one shampoo. Well, at least you could have taken time to wash and clean your clothes up after spending all that dough to have the doctor fix your nose up. Baby, get moving.
Baby, get moving.
Why keep your feeble hope alive? What are you proving?
What are you proving?
You got the dream, but not the drive. And your bells are curled, your lashes curled, but still the baby's blue. Wipe off that angel face and go back to high school.
We go together like ding-a-ding-a-dong, and forever like shabba-shabba-dabba-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Ding, 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 that's the way it should be. Oh, yeah. You're one of a kind, like you want to do it. Only the sun. You want to love. Ding, 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 ding. We'll always be together. We'll always be together. We'll always be together.
Jack and Ann Casson, ladies and gentlemen. They'll be back again in just a few minutes. Well, now I'm going to do what I wanted to do and switched it around, but that's okay. Sometimes we have to do that. Another great Broadway show that ended up being a great movie as well was a show that took place in the mid-50s in uptown Manhattan, the Upper West Side. And it was a show about conflict between two rival gangs, the Jets and Sharks. Words by Stephen Sondheim, lyrics by Leonard Bernstein. Ladies and gentlemen, selections from West Side. great music of Leonard Bernstein, a treasure of music from our wonderful country. You need to tune? Okay. Use us. Tuning time. Okay, well, continuing on. There's a great style of music that was developed in the South, and those men and women that farm our lands, supply all our food supply. And it's a great, lively little dance that was developed, and it features our string section. Ladies and gentlemen, we call it the Uptown Hoedown. Over the years, we've become friends with some great people on Long Island that are very well-known composers and arrangers. There's a gentleman named Carl Stroman who lives right here in Glen Cove, who's known nationally across the nation for his compositions for children, high school, colleges, and professional organizations, such as the orchestra you see in front of you now. Carl was commissioned to write this in the year 2001. And you know, we've had some ups and downs, and some pretty big downs over the years. This was written, it's called In Their Honor, and it was written for those who were affected, had their lives affected by 9/11. Thank you very much. Well, back in the year 1893, a young teacher from New England named Catherine Lee Bates was invited to come to Colorado and teach summer school. And she obviously jumped at the opportunity, having never left the New England area. So she hopped on a train and headed out west. And while she was on that train, she saw the wonderful sights and the wonderful land that is the United States, and was very, very moved by it. When she got to Colorado, she had an opportunity to climb up on Pikes Peak. And up there, she got a real bird's eye view of the great land that surrounds that mountain. And to this day, there's a plaque at the top of Pikes Peak that commemorates her visit up there. She wrote a poem, which we all now know as America the Beautiful. A few years later, Samuel Ward put that poem to music. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a great arrangement by Carmen Dragon, and if you'd like to sing along, I think that would be lovely. Ladies and gentlemen, America the Beautiful. Were you singing? Yes. Some of you were, yes, I heard it. You know, it's an interesting thing about crowds. Not a crowd, an audience, let's say. From every walk of life, opinions here and there and everywhere. You start singing together, everybody's unified. Isn't music a wonderful thing? Yes, it is. Well, you all know a guy named Barry Manilow, right? Yeah, plays the piano, sings, dances around, got a facelift, all that stuff. He looks like a zombie. You know, he sits down, his mouth opens. Anyway, he wrote a great song a number of years ago. A very fine, yeah, pretty funny, wasn't it? Yeah. A very fine patriotic song, and I'd like to ask Jack and Ann to come back and sing for us. This is called "Let Freedom Ring," and it has wonderful lyrics to it. I'm sure you're going to love it. And of course, "Let Freedom Ring" is from the Liberty Bell that's hanging in Pennsylvania there, in Philadelphia. It's got a crack in it. And there's an inscription on the Liberty Bell. Very serious. Yes, there is. And the inscription is from the book of Leviticus. Chapter 25, verse 10.
10.
I looked it up.
Okay.
And it says, "Proclaim liberty throughout all the land, unto all the inhabitants thereof." Ladies and gentlemen, Barry Manilow's "Let Freedom Ring."
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride, from every mountain side.
Let freedom ring, let its music resound throughout the nation. Let it celebrate sweet liberty that is keeping us free and strong. Let freedom ring, and let everyone share its inspiration. Let the promise not be satisfied until no one's denied its song.
It's a dream to build upon. We take the dream and pass it on and on and on, and let freedom ring. Let freedom ring.
For the children of every generation, may the love of freedom always ring, and let everyone sing along.
It's a dream to build upon. We take the dream and pass it on and on and on, and let freedom sing. Let freedom ring.
For the children of every generation,
May the love of freedom always reign.
it has brought us this far.
It has brought us this
It
far.
proclaims who we
It
are.
proclaims who we are, and together we sing. Let freedom ring. People all over the world, let freedom ring. People everywhere, let Ladies and gentlemen, the Nassau Pop Symphony Orchestra is proud to present. What am I doing? I totally lost my train of thought. We're happy to salute the men and women of the United States Armed Forces. If you have served or are currently serving, we ask you to rise and remain standing at the playing of your branch's theme. And now the Nassau Pop Symphony Orchestra proudly presents Bob Loudon's stirring arrangement, Armed Forces Salute. The United States Army.
He's going to stand up.
United States Coast Guard.
United States Marine Corps.
United States Air Force.
The United States Navy.
You forgot the Space Force. They have a song for the Space Force. There is the one.
Well, about 40 years ago, this song was written. And every time I say this, I still can't believe it's 40 years. It was premiered at the Republican National Convention in 1984. With
President Reagan.
President Reagan, that's right. And we just finished the...
We share minds. And he remembers.
It works. Yes, and it's words by Lee Greenwood, and people still sing it today. It's a great song, and we want you to sing along with us on the chorus, if you would, please. And this is God Bless the USA.
There was a song for the Space Force already. I'm surprised he doesn't know that.
I don't know if the words are fine.
Tomorrow all the things were gone I worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. Proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the ones who died that gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from the sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA. Well, there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the ones who died, who gave that right to me. And I'll gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Everyone.
Proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget
The ones who died
that gave that right to me. And I'm gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
Well, I think we're going to find one more to do for you, but before I do, I just wanted to let you know, some people say, how do we know when the Nassau Pops is performing? Well, we have a mailing list, and we mail out notifications a couple of times a year, right to your homes. If you'd like to be on that mailing list, well, simply go onto our website, nassaupops.com, and find a little thing that says contact us, and put your name and address in there. We'll put you on our mailing list, and we'll send you something when we're performing. We also have Facebook pages and Instagram pages, and if any of you people have those, please click on Nassau at Nassau Pops and follow us there if you would. Be happy to have you join our cyber family, as they call it. All right, well, we're going to close the concert with a march by the March King, John Philip Sousa. He composed 136 different marches. Amazing guy. This particular march, the United States Congress voted as the official march of the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, John Philip Sousa's Stars and Stripes. Forever. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Well, you know, I don't know. I was going to say something and I can't remember what it was, but I hope we've helped make this little corner of the world a little happier for you, and maybe help to bring to mind the wonderful blessings that we have in the United States of America. It's a great place to be, and there's so many great people that live here. You know, I must admit, I'm a news junkie. Guilty as charged. I come home, I zap on the TV, and I want to see what's going on. But lately, I see some things, and it overwhelms me, and sometimes it makes me a little anxious. When I do that, I remember some advice someone once gave me. They said, you know, the happiest people in the world are the people that are the most thankful. And I thought about that, and you know, every day I do that, and if you feel anxious too, try it. When you get up in the morning, look around for something to be thankful for. It's there. Your kitchen. You could prepare a meal. How many people in the world don't have a kitchen? But there's so many wonderful things we have. We have our families, we have our pets, we have singers like Jack and Ann. There are so many things to be thankful for. So do that. Find something to be thankful for, but then remember to look up and say thank you to the one from whom all our blessings flow. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join us in our farewell to you this afternoon? And I'm just so grateful that you all came out to see us today. Irene Berlin's God Bless America. Thank you. Thank you to the Village of Malverne for inviting us back again. Thank you to Jack and Ann Casson, our wonderful vocalists, to Susan and Jose, our wonderful sound crew. Thank you. Thank you to the orchestra. Ladies and gentlemen, our thanks go to each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. May God bless you all. Be careful going home. My name is Lou Panatulli, and we are the Nassau Pops Symphony Orchestra. Good night.